So right now I feel like some of the children that have been talking to Misty, and I want to cry. Oh. So I'm trying to keep myself composed, but can I tell you, this is what I envisioned.
Thank you.
So I want to start tonight by first saying to you that there are a few people in the audience I want to make sure to acknowledge. Of course, First Lady of Maryland, Dawn Moore, and her daughter Mia, President Valerie Shears Ashby, the first woman to lead our university. Our former First Lady of UMBC, Jackie Rabowski. And I have the honor to serve as the first Black woman to lead the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences here at UMBC. And sitting on stage with the first Black principal ballerina, Misty Copeland, at the first in our series of Artful Conversations, makes this event magical, awe-inspiring, and a clear indication, excuse me moms, that there are some badass women working to do some really great things in our society. So happy Women's History Month, folks. And then if I can just also give a quick shout out to my dean sister colleague, Dr. Stephanie Shonikin, for planting the seed for this lovely idea. I am so glad you're here tonight. So there are two things that most people know about me. First, I love my high heels. And some of you know that quite well. And in fact, I had a colleague who earlier this week challenged me and said, you know, Misty's a ballerina, you should wear ballet slippers. And I was like, I don't even own a pair of ballet slippers. I am in heels until it's time to go to bed at night. But then, the other thing about me that most people know is my love and admiration for the musical genius, Prince. And there are several others in the audience tonight who share in that love as well. I think if you notice the heels, and if you know anything about Misty's background, then you know she too has an admiration for Prince. So that's actually where I want to start.
I love
it. So Misty, I know you were in the video Crimson and Clover.
Yes.
But then you toured with Prince. And many of us fell in love with your stage performance with him of The Beautiful Ones, which was quite magical. Can you share more about your connection to him and what impact it may have had on your trajectory as a dancer?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you all tonight. I'm so proud to be amongst so many incredible, bad women. And this is a first for me as well, that I've never started out a conversation talking about Prince and heels. You know, so much of my career, you know, even just starting out in ballet has not been, you know, it's been not ordinary. And, you know, so I feel like throughout my journey, I've never really allowed myself to have artistic boundaries, even within an art form that has so many boundaries, so many rules. But I feel because I started dancing at such a late age, and you know, coming into the ballet world, I only had 4 years of training under my belt when I joined American Ballet Theater and became a professional dancer. And so, you know, I always felt like I want to do everything that I can to explore my artistry. Bring ballet and dance to as many people as I can, because I feel so fortunate to have been exposed to it and have had an opportunity and access to it. So when I was approached, well, Prince called my cell phone, and I was like,
"Wish he had my cell phone
can't be
number."
real. This can't be real. Like, what would he want? And you know, and so I think the initial conversation was really just about his admiration for another artist, and him also constantly wanting to grow and wanting to explore, you know, other artistry and be inspired and push himself. You know, even I think when we met, he was like maybe 50, 56 or something, and you know, still at that point in his career, wanting to push himself, and it was so contagious. You know, so yeah, he everything that happened with him felt so spontaneous, and it pushed me to do things outside of my comfort zone. You know, in ballet, and there's so many dancers in the room I know that have danced ballet, but you know, you spend so much of your time focused on the details, and there's so much preparation, which is amazing. You know, that's how you can go on stage and like the incredible dancers we saw tonight and let go and be present and be creative in the moment. Not with Prince. He was like, so you're gonna fly out to LA tomorrow, and then you're gonna be on the set for my music video. And I was like, but what am I doing? And he's like, well, you're gonna improvise. And that was like a first for me, you know, and just to go out there and just kind of create and feel in the moment. And I would do that with him through a lot of the touring that I did with him. I would, you know, arrive places and he would just say, here's the list of songs you're going to dance to, and you're just going to stop dancing when I come on stage. And I'm like, okay. And it really pushed me. And, you know, and then I would go back, this was during like off seasons from American Ballet Theater, then I would go back to ABT and just feel this confidence in myself. Okay. And then when I danced with him, he really created his Welcome to America tour that was, I think, like 2011, 2012, around me and around, you know, I performed with him to the Beautiful Ones whenever ABT would let me go, and he kind of made room for me in the show whenever I was available. But it was the first time that it was really familiar and it was really collaborative, and that was such an incredible experience. For, you know, we brought on a choreographer, and then I would arrive at rehearsals and Prince would re-choreograph it. I was like, all right. But it was just amazing to be able to be just in the presence of someone who's such, you know, just such a genius in every way, and that was still so open to exploring again at that point in his career. And it impacted me in so many ways. Like, you know, again, to have someone of his level, of his caliber, who really has stood in his uniqueness. Yeah. That's like what he's known for. I mean, outside of all his other talents. But to encourage me, you know, to own that. You know, I think that I've always looked at being the only in most spaces, and being the only Black woman at ABT for the first decade of my career. And Prince came in and was like, that's amazing to be the only and to stand out. And I was like, oh, I've never looked at it that way, you know, in a positive light in that way. And so he just kind of changed my perspective on things and challenged me artistically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured that's what he did.
And we both love wearing heels too.
In 2015, a pivotal moment for you when you were promoted as the principal dancer of the American Ballet Theater Company. Again, the first African-American woman to do so. You touched on it briefly in your response just now, where you talked about this means something, and I want to hear more about that. Did this feel like this significant moment where you were like, I've got to celebrate this? Or was there a part of this that felt like a burden, or both? Mm-hmm. Like, what was running through your head? What were your thoughts during that moment?
You know, again, I've had not a typical path and career of most classical dancers. I was in American Ballet Theater for, I I think about 15 years before I was promoted to principal dancer, which is unheard of. I mean, by the time, if you're in the corps de ballet, which is the large group of dancers that frame the dancers in the center and really create the atmosphere and dance in unison, you might think about retirement in your mid to late 20s. Wow. As a soloist, where you're doing featured roles, in your mid to late 30s, you're thinking about retirement. So I was 32 when I was promoted to principal dancer. Even just hang on to that dream and keep working. I think most people would look at me and be like, "You're like delusional," but I had a goal in mind. Of course, I think everyone starts out with that goal of wanting to dance Juliet or the Swan Queen, the lead role may be. But once I was in the company, it became something different. It stopped being just about achieving this goal. It was about the importance of being a presence on the stage as a Black woman, as a black body, and what that meant, not what that means for the next generation, but also for generations past who never had that opportunity and could see what's possible now. So by the time I was promoted, it was like I was already getting to perform some of the roles that I dreamed of, and so it was no longer like waiting for this moment to happen. So when it did, it was just it felt like this collective effort of like my ancestors. It was like I've been dancing with all of these people behind me, like pushing me forward, keep going, don't give up. And so it never really felt like this was my accomplishment, singularly. And so I think because of that, it didn't feel like so much pressure. It was like, we did it. And, but of course I'm human, and, years would go by, and then the pressure sinks in. But I think it's not so much of, because I'm a Black woman, but I think just the pressures of being in the spotlight and going on stage night after night and having to perform at a high level. But I've always felt this beautiful responsibility of being in this position, and not a pressure to be anything other than my best self, what I have control over, and I think so much a part of what I am doing is telling the stories of those who've come before me. Yeah. I feel like that's just a part of like what I'm here to do.
And I love the expression "beautiful responsibility." Like that's pretty heavy, but it also creates a lovely picture. And I did want to ask about that, because I know you talk about Raven Wilkinson and several others who you see as ancestors and mentors that got you to the spot that you were. And I really respect your humility to say, this is not on my shoulders alone, that I've had others to support me. Talk, especially to the young dancers in this space, about the role of mentorship and being open to receiving that level of support to get you to where you are now.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really even understood the importance of those types of relationships really until I was on my own. 17 years old, moving to New York City, becoming a professional dancer, and being the only Black woman in the company. It was a lot of just feeling like I didn't have guidance, and it took one person that came into my life and just saw me and heard me and sat me down and listened to me. And she was one of my first mentors, Victoria Rowell, an actress.
Yeah, actress.
Who started out as a ballerina at American Ballet Theater. She was in the ABT's junior company and was never accepted into the main company. She was the only Black woman at the time in the junior company. And, for her to understand what that meant. And it wasn't that, she was sitting me down and giving me tips on what it was to be a Black woman in this space, but it literally was just to see someone who had done it who'd been there. Like it just opened my mind, it opened my heart to, understanding what support can look like, and the importance of having support from someone who looks like you. And I think because I had that experience, it just kind of opened me up, and then I feel like people can feel that energy, and the mentors were just like flooding in. They're like, we're coming to help you. And I've had so many incredible women, a lot of incredible women that have been in my life, and amazing Black women. And then, by the time Raven came into my life, I was in my late 20s. And she just gave me the second wind to keep pushing, and to a lot of my mentors, except for Victoria, who was a ballerina, have been women in all different fields, that have been the first. And when Raven came along, it was like she really set the standard, being the first Black woman to dance in a major ballet company in America. In the 1950s, the first and only Black woman to dance for the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, and she became one of my closest friends and mentors. And had I not had her in my life at that critical time, I don't think I would have ever become a principal dancer. Wow. She just encouraged me in the softest way to advocate for myself, to voice the things I wanted. To be honest about my experiences.
And was she honest about her own experiences in the 50s?
Yes, which is what's so amazing, that she has literally led by example throughout her career. To be, she was fair-skinned and could easily pass in that time and on the stage, and she refused to. She always said, they even encouraged her name encouraged her within the company to change her last name to a Russian name, so that there would be no questions asked. I mean, a lot of it was for her protection. Her life was being threatened by the KKK whenever they would tour through the South, and so, and she was always, this is who I am. I'm standing in my truth, and eventually she would leave the company because it was too dangerous for her to dance, and she moved to Europe, where a lot of Black artists, especially in that time, that's where they were going. But to literally see her lead by example was the most incredible thing.
Yeah. So we clearly already have a sense that there's nothing about your trajectory and your success that's overnight.
No.
It's clear that you put in a tremendous amount of time, energy, dedication to what is your craft. And even though many refer to you as a prodigy, you also openly talk about, but I didn't even start this until 13. So talk about that when you're in a room full of dance moms and dads whose children started at the age of 3. I'm talking about myself. So based on that, what would you share about choosing this as a direction for sons and daughters, but certainly those that might be interested in what it takes to do this, even though you started much later than many may have?
It's complicated for a lot of people. It's I have so many friends of mine who now have children and have said to me, I would never put my child in ballet, and it breaks my heart because of their experiences. And that's so much of why I'm doing the work I'm doing, through my foundation and so many other organizations, is trying to really shift and change the culture around ballet, and really, make it a positive experience. But, I would say to encourage them to expose them to it, to allow them the opportunity to explore. I think it's such an incredible art form. I think that, of course, the arts education, dance education is vital. I wish we had funding for it in our schools. And, I think that's why the after school space is so important for us to really, focus on. But for me, again, I was considered a prodigy and I started at 13, but none of this, it happens overnight, like you said. Even though I only trained for 4 years before I became a professional dancer, there were still so many holes in my training and in my technique, and it took me a long time to catch up. And there are no shortcuts. In ballet especially. I mean, that's why people start young. I mean, it takes years and years of repeating the same movement so that it becomes second nature in your muscles, and you develop the strength. So then once you become, a young teen or a teenager, you can really start to develop your artistry and fine tune these other elements of what it is to be a performer. So it takes a lot of work and dedication and sacrifice. I wasn't going out with my friends and going, like weekends, it was all dedicated to dance and to ballet. But I think that what I would say to parents, and I said this to the dancers earlier today when I was speaking to you all, but just the importance of finding that balance. And that I know that it takes so much focus, and you want to put all your time in the studio. And I know I didn't want to be anywhere else. I loved being in the ballet studio, but to find that balance of still exploring and living your life and trying other things, because it'll only enrich your art. It'll enrich who you are as a person and just your experience overall as a human being.
Yeah, for sure. As a quick follow-up, because something that you said, I wasn't doing what the other teenagers were doing to end up getting to the point of being and able to do this professionally. Yeah. And then there's also the period where your mom wasn't sure that she wanted you to give this much time, because it did take up so much of your time. Talk about that as a decision point, and how difficult it was for you to navigate that period.
This is, I've learned so much throughout my life and through all of these different experiences. And, I think with my mom and like a lot of parents that, we're so focused on educating our children, when they come into these disciplines, sports, art forms, and there's not enough focus, I think, on educating the parents as well on what it is they're doing, so that they understand the value or finding that balance, again, like I said. But I think that's where my mom was coming from, was not knowing at all what it meant to be a part of the ballet world, the commitment that it would take and where it would take me. She had no idea. And so was it seen as just an extracurricular activity? Yeah, it was, even though, there were articles being written about me, and I was on all these shows, and people, but it still was like, but then what? What are you going to do with this? Where is it really going to take you? And so I think that was a lot of, and for her, being a single mom and, having 6 children, and it was like, I've got to keep food on the table and a roof over your head, which was a huge struggle. I mean, most of my childhood, we were houseless. So, her priorities were in a very different place. It wasn't on like, I need to get you to a ballet class, it was like, I've got to get to my 2 or 3 jobs. So it took a lot of sacrifice on her, and just kind of like, well, this is really what Misty wants to do. So let's see where it takes her. Yeah.
I think a lot of moms can identify with that, for sure. Speaking of family, now you have your own. Your spouse, as well as Jackson.
Yes.
A young toddler, almost 2. Almost 2. And it's interesting because I often remark that marriage nor having children was ever in the equation for me. I was going to live in New York like Misty. I was going to be in a penthouse apartment, you know, rotating boyfriends, a dog. You know. I mean, that was life. That was
dream.
Yes, that's what I thought life was going to be. But I say this to say that, boy, am I grateful that God and the universe knew better and gave me the opportunity to be the mother of a son and a daughter, my daughter who's here with me tonight. And I want to hear more about, I mean, like, what was your own experience, you know, starting your own family? What have you gained in this short, almost 2-year period about motherhood? And how has it kind of created a new vision, or possibly the continuation of an old vision for you?
You know, I come from a big family, and so it's always been something that I've thought I would do. I've always wanted to have children. I've loved children always, and but you know, as a professional athlete, as a working woman, as a woman who's, you know, so focused on her career, like, it's something you are constantly having to weigh, you know, which is more important to me, which is so awful. And especially being a ballet dancer, I mean, I feel like that conversation is non-existent. Like, people often just think of ballet dancers, you know, we're like stuck in this like time warp of like being a child always, you know, this kind of infantilization of the ballerina. We grow up and we perform as women, and you know, and I think it's just not really space that's carved out for us to have a full career and taken seriously and have a family as well. So, you know, I'm very fortunate that I could have my son, you know, at 39 years old when I had him, but you know, I've felt throughout my career that, you know, if I were to have a child when I was a soloist, that I wouldn't be taken seriously and wouldn't have been promoted to principal dancer. And it's a sacrifice you have to make, and it's a conversation I want to bring to the forefront and really challenge these companies to do more to support women and educate them on their options. But it's the best thing that's happened to me. And I mean, it's clearly shifted a lot of my goals. I haven't been on stage in like 4 years. I'm still a principal dancer at American Ballet Theater, but you know, I think it's allowed me to kind of step back and look at, you know, things that I think are equally as important to me as what I do on stage. You know, starting my foundation, starting my production company, continuing to write more books. I have an athletic wear line that I started called Greatness Wins with Derek Jeter, and a lot of endeavors that I feel like are kind of working towards that same goal of bringing more people into dance and into ballet, exposing it to a broader audience and bringing more diversity to it, and continuing that to have the conversations that are so tough to have within the ballet community.
Yeah. So that leads very nicely into the next question I wanted to ask, because there is a lot going on for you right now. So your production company, you talk about the fitness line that you have with Derek Jeter. I mean, all of the work that you're doing with your own foundation, the Misty Copeland Foundation, and the work that you're doing there. So we already knew you were great. Now what? Based on these new ventures that you have, like, where are you taking this, and what are the new goals? What are the new aspirations that you've put out there before you?
You know, I again feel so fortunate that I was given an opportunity, and I was given access to the arts and to dance, and it wasn't an unconventional way. It was, you know, at a Boys and Girls Club, at a community center, on a basketball court where I took my first ballet class, and I want to be able to just show again, like so many communities, specifically Black and Brown communities, the value of the arts, the value of dance, and the value of ballet, and that it can be for us. And so, you know, with the production company, Life in Motion Productions, it's really been about, you know, what better medium to use than media and film and television to access so many people. Right. You know, that a stage, a theater can look like so many things. It can be a YouTube short, you know, someone dancing on the street. It can look like so many things. And so I really just want to show people that ballet can evolve. Ballet, the stories that we tell can represent so many different voices and so many different people. And through the foundation, it's really, you know, similarly to how I got started, it's bringing dance into communities that might otherwise not have the access and opportunity, and then really creating a curriculum, a framework that was made for these communities, not taking a white European art form and putting it in, you know, Black and brown communities and saying, see yourself, you know?
Right.
So that's become, you know, like, there's so much work to be done. It's never ending.
Is that the core of the Be Bold initiative for the foundation?
Yes. So the foundation is only 3 years old now, and we're just in our second year of our signature program, which is Be Bold. It's a free after-school ballet class that's offered at community centers. Be Bold stands for Ballet Explorations. Ballet offers leadership development. So it's bigger than ballet. You know, it's about exposing young people to, you know, live music, getting them to connect their brains to their bodies and their muscles, and give them the skills and the tools to go on to be leaders, to go on to do whatever it is they want to do. You know, we're not looking for the next ballet superstar. That would be amazing if one of them came out of the program, but that's not the goal of it. You know, it's to expose them. And, you know, it's been incredible to watch it grow. You know, that we're working with a specialist child development and, you know, really creating the curriculum with a DEIA lens, so that's really at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And
are there moments of instilling like life skills as well to support young folks to understand in their exploration? Right?
I mean, so, you know, it's really important that they walk into the room and understand that this is like a sacred space. So when they enter the room, you know, we have a way that they enter the room. They sit down in a circle, and we really want to give them agency over themselves, which, as much as I love the ballet world, that's not something that's ingrained in our culture. It's like you walk into the studio, you don't say anything, you don't have an opinion, you can't have any input over what's happening, you're told exactly what to do, and that's it.
See, this is why I stopped.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And so, you know, one of the first things they do is they sit down in a circle and we do a check-in. It may take 5 to 10 minutes. And we see what's going on in their lives. We see how they're feeling. We're checking in. You know, the goal is by the end of the class to feel better than they did when they came in. And it's really about, you know, I said this earlier, but, you know, the importance of, you know, joyful rigor. You can have something that's rigorous that's still fun, and you're still learning, but you're still a part of a community and you're building relationships. And it's also important that we're engaging the communities, and again, their, you know, parents or, you know, whoever's responsible for them, inviting them into the space, really showing them who we are as a program before they have their kids come in and take these classes.
So I love knowing or understanding what you decided to create as a foundation, which I know comes from your willingness to give. But it also, I think, comes from some of the experiences you had early on. So you made mention of Boys and Girls Club. I know you're an ambassador for them. And then there are a number of other entities that you are connected to and that you are giving back to. Where does that come from? And what do you choose to give back to, and why?
I mean, that comes from, again, just not having a lot and then having someone see something in me and giving me a chance that completely changed my life. Right. And it's like, I have to continue this cycle. It's so important. It's
To
so-
keep mentoring,
it's so
right? To
important
keep pouring into
yes, to keep
others.
pouring into, to keep
Yeah.
mentoring. And the, the different organizations, like it's a range and they touch me in different ways, but I think at the heart of it, it's giving young people an opportunity, especially who wouldn't otherwise. I mean, another organization outside of the Boys and Girls Club that means so much to me is called Mind Leaps. It's an organization
Mind Leaps?
Mind Leaps.
Okay.
It's in Rwanda. And they're using the arts and they're using dance to bring these kids in from the street who are illiterate, who've never been to school, who have just experienced things we could never even fathom, and giving them an opportunity through music and through dance to then start to explore science and math, and then in the end they're given scholarships to attend different schools there. But I think, organizations that use the arts in ways to like expand our minds and expand opportunities for us as people are just, really touch me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the arts does allow us to explore and understand and know more about ourselves, but also about those that we share the world with.
Right.
And so I think the approach you have, thinking about the arts and why they're so important, why they should be in schools and not the first thing cut from schools, are all the reasons why I think your platform and the position that you have taken, whether it was something you wanted or not, is a important space for you to occupy because you understand that in such an intimate way and wanting to extend that message so that others can receive it and hopefully understand it to the point that something changes about the arts.
Thank you. I mean, it saves lives.
Yeah.
It's literally saved my life.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I'm forever indebted.
Agreed. There are a number of books, and some of us had the opportunity to get those books earlier, and some already came with books. I have to tell you, I kept myself from crying as I sat next to Misty, and there was this queue that just grew and grew with all of these young dancers, and even some adults. I saw some of you slip in, that wanted pictures with Misty, but also for her to sign your book. And there are a number of books: Life in Motion, Ballerina Body, Bun Heads, which is, I've heard, I'm going to pretend like this is the tidbit that I learned and that no one else knows, that Bun Heads 2 is coming out soon. Firebird, The Wind at My Back. I mean, there's so many of these, and I'm wondering, what are the stories that you're telling us, and why is it important for you to share these stories?
A lot of the stories that are important for me to tell are the stories of those who have come before me, who have opened doors for me, and history that is not documented of ours, of Black and brown people. We look at success in such definitive ways, I feel like, and through my exploration and just talking to different dancers of all ages in different communities and seeing the impact that people can have on a community who never got into a professional company, whose names you wouldn't know but have been in communities teaching young people that then go on to become these great dancers and open doors for people. Those are the stories that are really important to me, but also normalizing stories of young Black and brown people as well, that there can be a little Black girl in a ballet school that, and it's not about the color of her skin in the book. It's just her experience of having friends in her ballet class that may be very different from her and come from different cultures and what they're learning about one another and the beauty of being around people who are not like you. And
Again, that exploration. Yeah.
And so there are so many stories to be told. And I've got many more.
So look out for Bun Heads 2. Sounds like it's on the way. So I do want you to have a moment to just talk to the dancers in the room. You did that earlier today. Misty spent time with our dance students, and had a chance to just sit and talk in a conversation to share. And I'm sure they received so much from that experience. And I have to tell you, part of why I wanted to create this series clearly is to elevate the arts work that happens here at UMBC, because I think it's impressive, and I think it's still kind of a hidden gem in this area. So I want folks to know what we're doing here, and certainly what we saw with the dancers is an example of that. But the other tidbit was wanting to touch young folks and allow you to play, to be that conduit, to touch them. And so when I watch this cue mounting, and watching you interact with the youngest of the, the less than 1 year old, all the way to older teenagers who really are interested and excited about dance, what particular messages would you be communicating to them that you want them to leave this room with tonight?
I think as a dancer, it's so tough, and it's so easy to get caught up in like the minutia and the daily like battles, and a lot of those are within ourselves, and that it's so important to remember, why you do this. I think every day you should remind yourself why you do it, because it's such hard work that we often we forget. I've asked myself that question. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? and then you remember all of the beautiful moments. Like, I love to be on stage and I love to perform. That's when I feel my most free. Since I was 13 years old, and I was dealing with, again, like this, the unknown. Am I going to go home? Are we going to still be living in the motel room? Are we not going to have a place to stay? Is my mom going to still be with this boyfriend who's abusive? Like, all of these things. And then I go on stage and none of it exists. None of it matters. I can express myself in a way that works for me. And
sounds very liberating.
Very liberating, and I've always felt so safe. So it's so important to go back and remind yourself of those things that matter to you, and that made you excited to do this, initially, and then not comparing yourself to other people. And I know that's easier said than done. But remember Prince's words. In the end, I think you have so much power in being a unique individual and being yourself and owning that power. And then I would just say, lastly, is remember the importance of having a support system. Whether it's family or teachers and mentors or peers of yours, that you need it. It doesn't mean that you can't do it on your own. It doesn't mean that you're not strong enough. But it's so vital, for us to have community and to have a support system.
Yeah. I want to ask one final question, and then we'll have an opportunity for a couple of questions from the audience before we wrap up. But I am really curious about what's next. I mean, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And so if I can share this quick side story, Misty knows it, but I just want to share. So Misty is very busy, very busy. But she happened to be sharing the stage with the former president of this university last year. They both received honorary doctorates from NYU. Was it the Tisch School or?
Yeah.
It was, okay. Yeah. And he asked you, can I record you saying something to the dean of who's over arts at my former institution? And so I get this text message that has Misty Copeland saying, hi, Kimberly. And I'm just holding the phone like, what is going on? And I responded and I said, are you with Misty Copeland? And Freeman says, of course I am. And I said, I need you to put me in contact with her or her agent, because I want to do this in this space. So that. So I know what it took to make this moment happen based on how busy you are. So I'm curious if you could be any more busy. What's next? Like, where are we going?
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much work to be done. There's so much work to be done. You know, there's so many stories that I want to tell. Like, I really just want to use my voice to spark more conversations that are needed, you know, and necessary to have, like within the ballet world and within the ballet community. You know, I think that there's so much space for just healthier experiences and more joyful experiences to, you know, to explore ballet specifically. But also, again, there's so many more stories to be told. You know, I think we get so stuck and caught in these kind of traditional story ballets, and they don't represent everyone, and they definitely don't represent a lot of us today. I mean, they were created like between the 1600s and like the, you know, 1800s, right. And we're very different people now with different experiences and different stories to tell. But, you know, I want to just use different mediums to be able to tell these stories so that it can reach as many people as possible.
And do you think, and I'm not interested in engaging the politics of all of this, but where we are as a nation right now around DEIA work and what your commitments are, how do you feel like you're navigating that space?
I mean, I feel like it's really been important for me to just kind of follow my own path and journey, and not rely on other people to advocate for me or do the work, but that, you know, it's really, you know, I remember when you know, American Ballet Theater artistic director was stepping down, and you know, and a lot of people were asking me, like, is that something you would want to do, you know, step into a role like that, you know, with a company with this kind of legacy? And I was like, no, I want to start from scratch and create something, you know what I mean,
right,
with the, you know, from the ground up, with, you know, with a real, you know, clear mission in mind that's truly coming from a place of inclusivity. And so that's just, I guess, the way I've been navigating this space. It's like, I'm going to do it my way.
Okay. So I think we have time for a couple of questions, and just recognizing time. I know there are lots of questions, but we want to make sure Misty gets back to her Jackson tonight.
Besides practicing and rehearsing, what types of body conditioning did you do when you were dancing?
Well, yeah, you know, I've always felt like ballet kind of just takes care of everything. You know, I think there's like no better workout. But of course, you know, if you have injuries and things like that, that it's so important to do cross training. So, I mean, I've done it all. You name it, I've done it, depending on the injuries that I've had. Pilates and gyrotonics, and, you know, making sure that I'm really doing like the cross training, like the cardio and things like that in the gym. After my last big injury, I had 6 stress fractures in my tibia. I have a plate screwed in. I almost broke my leg completely. I was doing floor bar, which was like a lifesaver. It's literally doing a technique class, like a ballet bar, except for you're doing it all lying on your back or on your side or on your stomach. And it was one of the best cross-training things I've ever done. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about dance?
I mean, well, I love performing. I love being on the stage, but I also loved the traveling part of being in a professional ballet company. I mean, my first tour with American Ballet Theater was to China, and that was like so incredible and eye-opening. But yeah, I would say traveling and performing.
What's one of your favorite dance
So it definitely changes with age. I would say at this point, or even the last 5 years, some of my favorite ballets have been stories that have characters that are really challenging in terms of like the acting. So that are Manon, the lead in Manon, or Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, like the bigger acting roles that are really dramatic. I really enjoy doing those.
What age did you start dancing?
Well, I started ballet at 13, but I started dancing probably around the age of 7. Well, maybe a little earlier, but from what I can really remember when it became like my everything, Mariah Carey, her debut album had just come out, and I was like, I gotta choreograph to this. And it all started from there.
Are you still a Mariah Carey?
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, I think I'm her #1 fan. And it's pretty incredible that she's like a friend of mine now. I never thought I would ever say that. I mean, I talked about her in so many interviews. It was like, okay, I guess I gotta reach out to her. We gotta connect in some way.
What's your best memory from dancing?
I have too many really amazing memories. I told this story earlier to some of the dancers in the room, but I would say the first time I performed the Firebird in New York City, and just seeing a sold out audience that was, I would say, more than half full of Black and brown young people, which was like a first to see at the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center, is probably one of the most special memories of mine, dancing.
When things got hard, what did you think to yourself to keep pushing?
Again,
That's
I think
a
it's
UMBC student in the future.
yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's about going back to why you do it and remembering that, on those days where your feet are hurting or you're so tired and your muscles ache and you don't want to get out of bed, and you think about like that last question, what's your best dance memory? And remember why you do it, and kind of bring yourself to that, and remember that you can feel that way again.
What sparked your interest in dancing? Why did you start dancing?
I think music was really the catalyst for me wanting to dance. My mom always played music around the house, especially when we were all cleaning. Anita Baker, Aretha Franklin, Sade. And, and I wanted to dance whenever I heard music. So that was definitely, I think, the inspiration for me wanting to start.
Moving the body to good music.
Yes.
Because those are all good artists that you've mentioned. We are constrained with time because, again, we do have to make sure Misty gets home to her toddler. Want to be very respectful of that. I do want to invite Mia Moore to the stage.
I think you knew that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. No, thank you all so much for being here.
And I just want to say thank you to Dean Moffitt, first of all. Thank you so much. And to Misty, I feel like I'm 12 years old, but not quite. But just, we are honored to have you here. Every message that you spoke is the message that we want for our young people, not just at UMBC, but all of our young people everywhere.
Thank you.
And so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
And it is also such an honor to have our First Lady here and our First Daughter here, so we are delighted to have you. And I would be remiss if I did not personally thank Jackie Rabowski for being here. us know we wouldn't be here without Freeman. So, that includes you now. You wouldn't be here without Freeman either. So I am so grateful to you. Thank you so very much. And so again, on behalf of UMBC and our arts departments and our dean of our College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, it is a privilege to have you here. It is an honor to have you here. And I hope that you all leave as inspired as I feel. I heard you say something that's our mantra for every day. You better know why you're doing what you're doing, because there will be days. Then you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? But I also heard you say something so beautiful, that somebody saw something in you and gave you a chance. And that's actually why we wake up every day and come to UMBC.
That's right.
We look at our young people who come here, our older people who come here, any of our students, and our whole goal is to see something in them and give them a chance. And we know that that's life-changing. So thank you for all for being here. Thank you for your presence, for your inspiration. And Mia, you know, I'm envious. I'm going to have to come and watch you dance. My knees used to move, but they don't quite do it anymore. But we're so proud of you. And thank you all for being here.
Thank
Have a
you.
blessed day.
Thank you. That was so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.